The Last of Us was the first video game to ever make me cry. I fell in love with it due mainly to its amazing characters, the incredible plot which developed at a great pace, and which concluded with one of the best endings to a game we have ever seen. For 7 years, fans like me have been eagerly awaiting the sequel, and when it finally came, little could I have imagined the controversy that would explode. The Last of Us Part 2 is the latest victim of the culture war which is brewing on the internet. On one side, you have the "this game is 3 out of 10 garbage, it is SJW trash." And on the other side, you have the 10 out of 10 masterpiece, best game ever, if you're an incel, homophobe, if you disagree with me. I'm going to take as balanced a view of this game as possible in my review. However, it still remains my review, and my personal opinion. So if you think you might be offended by me saying what I think about a video game, then please, do stop the video now, and save yourself some rage. By the way, this review will be spoiler free until the last part, and you will have fair warning from beforehand. So if you haven't started or completed this game, don't worry, you can watch till then. Finally, don't forget to leave a like, and please do subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my content. It would really help support my work here on Adlib Talk. The Last of Us Part 2 starts off 5 years after the events of the first game. We are now around 25 years into the outbreak, and society has broken down into a number of different clans. Ellie and Joel are now living in the town of Jackson, Wyoming, which is run by Tommy and his wife Maria. Something significant takes place, and Ellie travels to Seattle to find someone. It's hard to describe the plot without spoiling anything. Let me start off with the positives, and this game has a lot of positives. The game world is exceptional. The design throughout is at an extremely high level. Every street, every room feels like it has been lived in and then abandoned after the outbreak. I cannot imagine how much hard work has gone into the design of this world. The fungus, which is grown all around, is both disgusting yet also fascinating. The letters found around the world are really good at fleshing out the world even more. This is Naughty Dog at their best. Level design is also brilliant. It never really feels gamey, does it? You have cover because it makes sense in the world for there to be cover. I especially love the design of the grass. There is a heart-pounding fight in a field at one point, and hiding in the crops looks and feels great. I also enjoyed the inclusion of water and swimming, and I have to praise its impressive design. I have never seen water look this good in a console game, and I love ducking down into water to find cover from my enemies. All of this goes hand in hand with the visual and graphical quality, which, as I'm sure you've already heard, is out of this world. This game is the best looking game on console by far. This goes not just for the world, but also for the characters. Everything looks so real and so beautiful. The animations are also of the highest quality. Movement is brilliant, especially with Ellie. You duck in and out of combat, and it all feels so fluid. Jumping, climbing, crouching, it is all animated at the highest possible level. I honestly do not know how a company can improve on these aspects. And what about that fantastic motion capture used to bring out true emotions from the characters? I am a true believer of less is more, especially when it comes to dialogue. A picture, or in this case a face, is worth 1,000 words. And Naughty Dog knows this. They let the actors' facial expressions do a lot of the talking in this game. The sound design makes all this click, excuse the pun. Whenever you shoot a gun, you feel like you actually shot a gun, and it sounds like you actually shot a gun. And whenever you punch an enemy, the punch feels real, it feels guttural. And what about those clickers? They sound so terrifying. Just like in the first game, there is sparse use of a soundtrack, but whenever it kicks in, the emotions kick in. Dialogue also sounds great. The voice acting is of the highest level here, Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson are back, and they are joined by some other great voice actors like Shannon Woodward and Laura Bailey. The combat is gruesome and feels amazing. Just like in the first game, you are in third-person mode, and it is a combination of stealth and action where you have to utilize all the tools provided to defeat your enemies. Aiming can sometimes be a little awkward, but it is more to do with the perspective. I also found the controls to sometimes be a little clunky, but this is real nitpicking. Overall, guns feel good to use, and it is always great to creep behind someone and shift them in the throat. I especially enjoyed using Molotovs. And what about the enemies? You face 3 different factions throughout the game: the WLF, the Seraphites, and the Rattlers. They each have their particular strengths, and to be honest, I enjoyed fighting all of them. The WLF are strong fighters with a lot of military equipment. Their use of guard dogs was especially effective, both as a game mechanic, but also emotionally. I was always destroyed, emotionally speaking, whenever I had to kill one. My favourite faction were the Seraphites, colloquially called Scars, who are a religious cult at war with the WLF. They are a good contrast to the WLF, as they despise military tech, and instead depend on silent weapons such as bow and arrows. Fighting them in the woods were some of the best moments in this game. I especially liked how they used whistling to communicate with each other. This is very unnerving for you as a player, as you never know what your enemies have just communicated. Finally, you also face the Rattlers, probably the most generic of all these groups. These rock-loving members, armed in police gear, and then seem to enjoy torturing their victims, as well as crucifying them. Naturally, in a zombie apocalypse, you also face hordes of them. In this game, we still have the usual zombies from the first game, with a few new ones added. The clickers are still as terrifying as they were in the first game, and the new zombies had an interesting twist to the combat. I especially enjoyed fighting the stalkers, as there are now more of them than in the first game, and combat with them can sometimes get very scrappy. All of this is great. Now, as you might have noticed, I have so far not mentioned 2 of the most loved elements of the first game: the characters and the writing. And it is here that the first true negatives come into the picture. First of all, the new characters are uninteresting, and I find it very hard to empathize with them. This refers to both minor and major characters. One of the new major characters was Dina, and I was excited to see how her relationship with Ellie would develop. But we never get to know anything about her. She's basically Ellie version 2. Oh, she's also Jewish. To be honest, there is one scene in a synagogue which was fantastic, as we learned a lot about who Dina is and her background. But apart from that scene, her character never really got any other development or focus. There is another new character whom I cannot mention, but if you've played the game, you'll know who I'm talking about. The game tries really hard to make you empathize and understand her point of view. But honestly, I never really felt anything for her. I'll get more into this in the spoiler section. There is actually one new character I really liked, and that's Lev. I can't say much about him, but there is a lot of backstory to this character, and he has a particular scene which actually made me feel something. What about returning characters? Now, Joel and Ellie are obviously still recovering from Joel's actions at the end of the first game, and it feels like the whole focus of this game is about Joel's decision to save Ellie, and then his decision to lie to her, and the very strong consequences to these. Some decisions taken by these main characters make absolutely no sense. Tommy, for example, takes a certain decision at one point. Something happens, the next scene, he takes the polar opposite decision. Characters do not act like you would expect them, and this means that the plot is a bit of a mess. Like I said, characters take decisions which make no sense, but also character motivations are very hard to understand. Some of the writing is clearly rather weak, when compared to previous Naughty Dog games. And this is a story that, in my opinion, can only take maybe 8, 10, not more than 12 hours. It truly overstays its welcome. And this means that the pacing is also all wrong. I will describe this in more detail in the spoilers section, but the game is around 25 to 30 hours long, depending on how fast you approach it. And honestly, I feel like this game should have been at least 10 hours shorter. There's a whole segment which is not needed. It's basically a separate game. This, together with the large amount of encounters with enemies and very few set pieces to interrupt, mean that the game is truly dragging. Like I already said, I truly enjoyed the combat encounters, but there are too many. And to make matters worse, the looting and searching for collectibles really does slow down the pace of the game further. Naughty Dog are experts at making 10, 12, 15-hour games. I have no idea why they went for such a longer narrative here. I honestly lost a lot of motivation to play in the second half of the game. Both because I didn't care for what was going on screen, but also because it was the same gameplay loop over and over again. It's a testament to how good the combat encounters actually were as to why I continue to play. To interrupt the killing of random enemies around Western America, we have a number of flashback scenes. Whilst I cannot go into detail, I have to say that these are some of the best moments of The Last of Us Part 2. One small positive I would like to mention about the writing are the letters I mentioned at the beginning of the review. I read every one I found, and some sent chills down my spine. Exceptional writing in these cases. And to conclude, what about that ending? I honestly shed a few tears at the end, but I can understand why so many people hated it. I personally didn't mind it, however it could have been done much better, and I will explain how in the spoilers section. So, thank you so much for watching, guys. If you don't want to watch the spoilers section, I really appreciate you reaching this part of the video. I know it's been a long review, but there is so much to say about it. Overall, thoughts still remain positive about this game, and so, as a final score, I'll give this game a 4 out of 5, although with time, and with a bit more thought about the plot holes and general poor writing, I'm sure I can push that down to a 3.5 out of 5. So, the next part of my video will be the spoiler discussion section. So this is your final warning. Spoilers incoming. So, we have to start off with Joel's death scene. I understand why they included it early on in the game. It's there to make you hate Abby and to motivate you to push on your revenge mission to find her. And honestly, Joel is an old man by now, has made a lot of enemies, and it makes sense that he would eventually be found by one and killed. This doesn't mean that I didn't wish the whole game was a continuation of the first one, with Joel and Ellie as the two main characters, and neither does it mean I didn't wish for Joel to get a better death. But Naughty Dog took a different narrative direction, and I accept and understand that, and actually applaud them for having the balls to do that. What I did not accept and understand was the decision to make Abby a playable character. I mean, I understand the reasoning behind it, but if you're going to do that, actually make me care about her. I never empathized with her, I never wanted to play as her, and I never enjoyed playing as her. So the game forces me to play as Abby, but I don't care about her, and I definitely don't care about her friends, Mel, and neither Manny. And this is one of the main reasons why I mentioned I lost a lot of motivation to play the game in the second half. You also restart as a character, mechanically too, and you end up repeating things again, learning skills you already had learned as Ellie, and this becomes very boring. Now, with regard to the ending, I wish the game gave you the option to choose what approach you want to take. Do you want to kill Abby at the end, or do you want to avoid the fight? After all that build up, Naughty Dog should have given us the choice. That would have made it much more compelling and removed all the controversy at the same time. Needless to say, there is much more to say about this game, and I want this to be a dialogue. So what are your thoughts on The Last of Us Part 2? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time on Adlib Talk.